Just when you think it's safe to put away the ridiculous image of Matt Hancock and Nadine Dorries, just when you think it's safe to park those two, these two high-profile figures of absurdity in the Conservative Party, both of them, who both had significant influence, particularly under Boris Johnson, and were both involved as health ministers, one more senior than the other, though certainly not one more competent than the other. But their tenure was marked by controversy in the health service, and then for Nadine Dorries in the Department of Digital Culture, Media and Sport, that she ought to have brought insight to as somebody who is a published author. Well, they're both published authors, though in the case of Matt Hancock, we know who the ghostwriter was. And during their time in the health ministry, this patina of incompetence, this tendency to prioritise their own political image over the welfare of the public was already known. And now there's revelations surrounding their handling of suspicious deaths in mental health facilities, highlighted by leaked WhatsApp messages, further tainting their legacy and raising serious questions about their ethics and their leadership. Nadine Dorries, in particular, seems to have displayed a striking lack of sensitivity and transparency in her approach to grieving families who were seeking justice. And the messages in which she discussed picking off the families one by one to prevent a full public inquiry into the deaths of mental health patients demonstrates a calculated political manoeuvring aimed at minimising accountability, and thinking that this is something that she could be praised for. Her comment about isolating the mother of Matthew Lee, a young man who died under suspicious circumstances in a mental health unit, reflects a chilling disregard for the gravity of these families' grief and the pursuit of truth. This isn't just ineptitude. It's manipulative politics at its worst. And the phrase mental health is so effing political, underscores her frustration with the issue, yet reveals her inability to treat these issues with sensitivity, her inability to treat these serious matters with the care that they deserve. I've long treated both of these as figures of fun. I've mocked them remorselessly, and I will continue to do so, actually, but today is not the time for a Matt Hancock impression or a or poking fun at Nadine Dorries as much as she deserves it. Her stupidity, her arrogance, her ineptitude, of course, but her blind desire for power, to be seen by the group in charge as being on the right side, protecting the indefensible, defending the indefensible. Matt Hancock, while juggling the pandemic response as Health Secretary, appears to have abdicated responsibility for this situation quite entirely, deferring to Dorries' judgment, as if that's actually a credible position. This passive endorsement of her approach raises questions about his own ability to properly oversee and manage crises beyond the pandemic. His focus on public relations during COVID-19 was often criticised as self-serving, with many accusing him of being more interested in public appearances and personal image than actual governance. And here is a story that seems to expose him and her. His later appearances on reality TV, for example, further fueling the perception that he sought the spotlight at all costs. And the broader issue here is not simply that these two individuals were ineffective leaders, but that their actions have delayed justice for families affected by spurious and suspicious deaths in the mental health system. By attempting to block a full statutory inquiry, they both show a willingness to sweep serious issues, under the carpet in favour of political expediency and their own personal survival. The fact that the inquiry was only granted statutory powers after they both left office points to the systemic dysfunction in their management and in the management of government over this issue and others. It points to a serious problem where those people with power can control what happens. And I have to get to Grenfell Towers at some point today, but I haven't so far. I mean, that again also. How is it possible for somebody to get a 9-year sentence for arson, and yet the people who have done nothing to sort out the Grenfell Towers cladding are still sitting pretty? How is that possible? You know, people talk about two-tier policing, and it has a particular angle and a particular resonance with a particular tribe. When I don't think we're talking about two-tier policing, we're talking about a two-tier justice system in this country and a two-tier political system in this country. And that needs to be seriously questioned. We're talking, in fact, among other things, about class or about power. I don't think class is the right word. I think this is about power and about the abuse of power. And Dorries's justification that working in mental health was demoralizing and politically fraught fails to acknowledge that as a public service and as a public servant, as somebody who has a background in nursing, her duty was to push past personal and political discomfort to deliver justice for the most vulnerable. And Hancock's defense, citing his focus on the pandemic, well, his focus was on somebody in the cupboard. It rings hollow in the light of his endorsement of such morally dubious tactics. Both Dorries and Hancock exemplify a troubling pattern within the Conservative Party, within the government, within those who have power. A penchant for self-preservation over public service, a reliance on political gamesmanship to avoid accountability, and a persistent failure to uphold their own moral responsibility that comes with the positions that they have been granted. Their legacies, tainted by these controversies, serve as stark reminders of the dangers of political ineptitude when it intersects with issues such as mental health, sensitive issues which require help and public inquiry. But in the end, this is about a moral vacuum that is governing our country. And I don't think it's as simple as saying, 14 years of conservatism. I think this is about a system which enables power and enables individuals with power to game that system. And in 14 years' time, we will be levelling the same charges against people in the Labour Party. So believe me, I'm not tribal here. I'm simply saying our system favours the powerful, those with power. And those people who've said the right things to get that power in the first place, it's granted to them by grace, really. And they abuse that. Power corrupts, and this is evidence. But this is the power of people who should never have been granted it in the first place. Nadine Dorries. Oh, for goodness sake, it's laughable. Matt Hancock, he's proven what sort of character he is. These two people should be put in public pillories. People should be throwing vegetables at them. This is so shocking. I will get back to ridiculing both of them, but today I am shocked. I'm genuinely shocked by this story and by their contempt for ordinary people. They are elected to represent people. The only people they have represented is themselves.